नहीं चाहिए। ये क्यों आ रहा है ऐसे?
स्लाइड शो कीजिए प्ले।
नहीं, ऐसे नहीं आ रहा। चल।
शो डिटेल्स करना होंगे ना।
नहीं, मैं कर लेती हूँ। थैंक यू. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm here to talk about canalicular laceration, some tips and tricks. Like Dr. Sameer has already elucidated that whenever there's an ocular trauma, we have to mind our ABCs, that is airway, blood, and circulation, rule out any systemic injury, and then vision takes priority over any eyelid or canalicular trauma. We also take care of tetanus prophylaxis and antibiotics. Any kind of associated eyelid and canalicular trauma should be looked for, as if it's disregarded, it can cause eventually canalicular stenosis and subsequent epiphora. So the key principles would involve deciding whether you need a local or general anesthesia. Like the video which was previously shown, which had an intranasal manipulation, you would probably prefer general anesthesia. In a child, you would need a GA, but a monocanalicular intubation and unicanalicular repair, you can do it under local anesthesia. We would also need to clean the foreign bodies and clean the wound thoroughly. We have to assess the extent of the injury and the severity, make a surgical plan, and then ensure good lighting, hemostasis, and visualization. I personally prefer to use a microscope over surgical loops for canalicular repair. So today our area of interest is the canaliculus up to the lacrimal sac. A macroscopic view would tell us its relation to the medial canthal tendon, which has a superior and inferior crus, which then further divides into anterior-posterior limb, which lies anterior and posterior to the lacrimal sac. So in case of canalicular injury, like we have in this case, the goal of repair is to identify both the ends, the proximal as well as distal, and approximate them and place a stent and suture it around the stent to ensure lacrimal patency eventually. So there are various etiologies coming from a fall or road traffic accidents, but we have to specifically look for canalicular injuries in cases of dog bites, which are commonly associated with medial eyelid injuries, and anti-rabies vaccination has to be taken into account. Another common injury in Indian scenario is the blouse hook injury. We have a paper, in-house paper on this, which has shown about 20% cases having kids presenting with blouse hook injuries causing canalicular tears. So when do we repair? Can we locate the punctum in this case? When it's all mucky and dirty, it sometimes might be difficult, and you might have to clean the wound thoroughly to find it, as you can find it over here in the black circle. An ideal time to repair would be between 6 to 8 hours, and next would be, if the patient has presented a bit late, would be 24 to 48 hours, preferable to repair up to 5 days. The chances of failure are more if the repair is planned after more than a month. Here is a child who presented 3 months post-injury, who never underwent any kind of primary repair, and it's almost near to impossible to be able to find the proximal end of the canaliculus and place a stent and suture it around it to ensure patency. So such children would eventually present with chronic epiphora. So should an upper canalicular tear or laceration be repaired? That's a question that commonly comes to many people's mind. So as per literature, upper canaliculus is responsible for about 35 to 56% of total tear drainage. And epiphora blurring discomfort in 56% of cases has been noted in superior canalicular obstruction. How do we locate medial end of the lacerated tear? So in this patient, the wound has been instilled with a vasoconstrictor, alpha brimonidine in this situation, wherein you can see the rolled out white pearly epithelial lining, which is marked, wherein lies your medial end of the canaliculus. This exposure can be achieved by retracting the skin by means of a skin hook. which is preferred over a forceps to give you good exposure. To locate medial end of the canaliculus, we can also use injection of colored dyes like methylene blue or fluorescein. Bubble test has also been reported long back in literature, wherein there's pooling of saline in the medial canthus and air injected through the normal canaliculus. The location where the air comes out from would probably help you locate where the medial lacerated end of the canaliculus lies. The other methods include injection of sodium hyaluronate, which can be stained with fluorescein as well, and usage of opposite punctum and opposite canaliculus is mentioned in literature. But there's also a paper in JAPOS which says that just by injecting sodium hyaluronate over the suspected area of the canaliculus, you can achieve some degree of hemostasis. And then once you are able to find the canaliculus, you inject a little bit of sodium hyaluronate into the canaliculus so that it helps you dilate, and eventually that will help you place the stent more easily. Sympathomimetic drugs I just spoke about. The use of pigtail is very questionable, though it was earlier used in by use of the other punctum. We'll discuss it later on. Here is a short video of a patient. One second. Wherein we are doing monocanalicular stenting. After dilating the punctum, we could easily locate, because it was very proximal to the punctum, the cut end. After injecting the dye, since it was under local anesthesia, we asked for the patient whether the fluid has come into his nose or the throat. And there's no regurgitation noted. A mini Monoca stent is being placed, with the collar of which is nicely plugged at the punctum. Rest of the pericanalicular suturing is done with 8-0 Vicryl. And the skin, orbicularis and skin is closed in layers. So this was the pre and post-operative image of the patient, which looks very smooth, and there's no raised tear meniscus. This was post-removal of stent at a month's time after placing the stent. Another method which we just mentioned in the couple of slides earlier was by injecting dye from the opposite punctum. This dye has helped us locate the proximal, the cut end of the medial end of the laceration, and it can be further intubated with a stent, and pericanalicular suturing can be proceeded with, and rest of the wound is closed. Here is that paper that I just mentioned, wherein sodium hyaluronate is just placed over the canaliculus, and once some amount of hemostasis is achieved, they have injected it into the canaliculus to help dilate it. This is not something that the present-day fellows commonly see, but this is what we call the pigtail probe, because it's shaped like a pigtail. Now this one is used for the right upper and the left lower eyelid. The other end would be used for the left upper and right over lower eyelid. The opposite punctum and canaliculus is used to pass it through it. You have to maintain the curvature and ensure that there's no tear of the normal canaliculus, and bring it out. It has a small eyelet through which some kind of suture, like a Prolene suture, can be passed, and an annular suture can be put so that the patency is maintained. This was what was being practiced, but since it involves manipulation of the normal canaliculus, it is best not preferred. After you've localized two ends, you would need an ideal stent which would fit in, and it should be inert. It should be soft and pliable to minimize ocular irritation or tissue erosion, and it should be stable enough to remain in place for a long time. Stent may be used in three ways. It could either be a bicanalicular stylistic intubation. Dr. Samir just showed a video of it. Or it could be an annular stylistic intubation. Or it could be a monocanalicular stylistic intubation, which is the preferred mode of correction now. A monocanalicular stent extends from the eyelid margin to the canalicular sac across a canalicular laceration. It extends into the sac, and you would have to trim it to a suitable length to be able to fix it in place. Otherwise, it will just coil inside the sac. This is the collar button of the mini monocar, which fits at the punctum. It is 2 millimeters. And suppose there's a larger punctum or a dilated punctum, you also have a larger button of 4 millimeters. The reason why monocanalicular is preferred over bicanalicular, as it avoids manipulation of the normal canaliculus and the nasolacrimal duct. Stents are easy to place, and there is no intranasal manipulation. And also, it can be done under local anesthesia. The one which is provided by FCI Ophthalmics has a plunger which comes along with it, but you can use your thinnest probe or your punctum dilator to fix it in place. There's no danger of cheese wiring or erosion of punctum, which occasionally can occur with bicanalicular stents. Pericanalicular suturing of the tissue is important to ensure proper alignment of the epithelium. And in spite of all this, there can be some complications like loss of tube, granuloma formation, or a slit canaliculus, and persistent tearing in case there's a cicatrization and stenosis. Here are some of the cases pre and post operatively which have done very well and do not have any epiphora and have a patent lacrimal system. So what do we take home from this is that when there's a trauma to ocular adnexa, we must specifically look for medial canthal lacerations and position of punctum. Upper as well as lower canalicular lacerations need to be repaired to prevent epiphora. And presently, monocanalicular stents are preferred over bicanalicular. Thank you, everybody. If there are any questions.